Thank you all for joining us today on this Training Tuesday. I am Heidi Reese, and I'm sitting here hanging out with Mr. Chuck Hoke. I am the program's training manager, and I'm sure all of you know that Chuck is the National
Training Manager.
Well, he used to be in sales. Wow, I don't even know what you are, Chuck. Chuck is
I'm
the
a lot of things.
He's the Mr. Know-It-All. But he's just hanging out with me today. We are doing some moral support for our presenter. We just want to go over a couple of items before we get going on the Sleeve Lock Training Tuesday. So before, when everyone signs in, they have been muted so that we can all enjoy the webinar free of other distractions on the line. Please, though, feel free to go ahead and put in any questions that you may have during the presentation, and definitely at the end, we'll have a mini question and answer session. So you can do that to me, Heidi Reese, in the chat functionality through Zoom. What else? The presentation itself is being recorded, and yes, Matt, it is being recorded. The last time we did this with him, it wasn't, and the poor guy had to do it again. So we will definitely put that on our YouTube channels on Dayton Superior, as well as DaytonSuperior.com. So, just so you all are aware, anything that we talk about in today's presentation is intended for training purposes only. The things that are within this as far as products, you can find that technical specifications, technical data sheets, safety data sheets, you name it. The products mentioned here will be on DaytonSuperior.com. Just do a search and you can find all of that information. So who is Dayton Superior? We are the leading provider of engineered solutions for the concrete construction industry. We specialize in accessories, chemicals, and forming, and we have the proven solutions with Simon's Forming shoring, concrete repair and restoration, bridge deck, rebar splicing that we're going to talk about today, precast and tilt-up construction. We definitely have chemical solutions that are specifically formulated to meet design specifications that you need, whether they be for new construction or retrofit. So like I said, today's webinar is on the sleeve lock system. And with us today is Matt Mayer, and he's one of our technical sales representatives. That's where the sales came in, Chuck. And he is going to go over the grout sleeve applications and uses. He's going to talk about the setups, the features, the full system in its entirety. He's, and I'm going to go over your resources that are available to you. He can address some questions on that, and there's so much more that we're going to talk about. So who is Matt? If you guys haven't heard him in the past, Matthew is a graduate of Texas A&M University and has been in and around the construction industry for over 15 years, dealing with insulation and fireplaces. For 10 of those years, he's worked with rebar fabrication and concrete accessories. He is a member of the Concrete Reinforcing Steel Institute and sits on the committee of the reinforcing bar fabrication for them. He also participates with the Anchorages and Splicing Committee and is a member of the American Concrete Institute group. So perk up those ears and get your questions ready as Matthew dives into sleeve lock systems.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi. Welcome everybody to another Training Tuesday. We'll try to get through this, make it as exciting as possible as we walk through really the best splicing system that we have for the precast industry. So today we're going to talk about, as Heidi mentioned, the sleeve lock system, and we'll walk through just kind of the intro to the basics, and then we'll walk through the parts of the system itself, and then answer any questions that you guys have after we highlight some of the products or projects that it's been in. So sleeve lock is, like we said, used almost exclusively in the precast industry, and it can be used to connect two precast elements. So you can go precast to precast, or where we see it used a lot more frequently is to connect precast to cast in place. So you have a structure with bars coming out of a foundation or coming out of a wall that's already in place, and then you'd lower a precast element in place. The way it works, the way I like to describe it to engineers and contractors, precast plants, is you're essentially making giant Legos, adult-sized Legos. So you make a element that can then be fit on top of rebar that's in place. you pour the grout into the tube, pump the grout into the tube, and that makes the structural connection. Some examples of that, as you can see here, is this is our epoxy coated version of the grout sleeve in a forming bed, and all set up, ready to go. The tubes there you see are capped off with duct tape. That's just something the contractor does to make sure the concrete doesn't get inside the tubes. And then once it's all poured, the concrete's set and the tubes or the forms are knocked off, you're left with these lovely field ends that are then slid over the rebar in place and make your structural connection. Some of the typical forming that you're going to see would be wood forms, or in this case, you can see on the left, you've got some steel ply forms. You can have your Simon's forms. Typical formwork that's been seen with the rebar and the grout sleeve in place. Here on the right, the grout sleeve tubes have been placed and then, like we said, capped to prevent concrete from entering the sleeve, and then they pour that in place. So the grout sleeve itself can be used for anything from number 4 up to number 18 rebar. It is specific to grade 60 right now. I'll highlight that, but we do have testing ongoing to get grade 80 approvals as well. So what does grout sleeve do? It kind of bridges the gap between our regular splicing products that we've highlighted on this channel before, our DBDI and our taper lock series, and regular just cast in place or regular just placed rebar construction. It also bridges our chemical line because it brings in our cementitious non-metallic grout as part of that. So it uses our entire portfolio in this one system that we have in our splicing side. This just kind of highlights the elements of the system itself. It's designed for, like we like to say, for Dayton, everything except the concrete and the rebar goes into it. So what do you get with the grout sleeve with the sleeve lock system? You get the sleeve, you get the port plugs, you get the form plug, and the seal plugs. You'll notice here in this graphic that we don't include the tubes, and a lot of times the precasters or the contractors will ask us why we're not including those, because for our system, unlike our competition, we've standardized those on both sides to just be 3/4 inch Schedule 40 PVC. So it's a lot easier and a lot less hassle, a lot less expense for the contractor to just be able to run down to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever their local store is and grab some Schedule 40 PVC and cut it into the lengths that they need, rather than have our distribution centers try to stock or carry multiple sizes or try to cut those for them and have them show up to the job site in the wrong size. We found it a lot better for the guys in the field if they're just able to cut PVC themselves. So again, that's a big advantage over the competition. They have multiple sizes for multiple size sleeves. So their number 4 has 2 different sized holes for their tubes, and then their number 18 has different size holes, and all the way in between. Ours from 4 to 18 is standardized to accept that PVC. So how does the system work? Again, it's a type 2 connection for grade 60. You place it into the forms on the seal plug, slide the rebar in from the form end, place your tubes in place. You've got that supported with some chairs, and then you pour your concrete in place. There's a lot more, or a lot fewer, parts than the competitor's product. It's a lot less hassle on the job. All you have to do is set, cast your concrete, and then connect your 2 pieces. It's just that simple. In this version, there's no threading involved. You can see here a cutout of the tube. Just to show you the inside, there are alignment guides inside the tubes to keep the rebar centered. There is a center stop pin that is solid to make sure that the rebar is engaged fully when you put it in place and when you're casting. It is made in the USA, requires minimum concrete coverage. It's a question we always get when we do these is what's the concrete requirement, the coverage requirement on a splice, it's the same as concrete. It's going to be about 3 inches minimum. And so the thin profile of our sleeve allows for that connection and that concrete coverage to be achieved pretty easily. And again, accommodates readily available PVC, nothing special with the port tubes on our sleeve. This is a chart that we made up specifically for precasters. We had a lot of conversations and a lot of questions about the openings, especially on the field end of our sleeve. There was a lot of conversation about ours versus the competition, and this was to highlight that there is plenty of room for the rebar to get into the sleeve. If you'll notice on like the field end on the number 18, you have 3¼ inches to slide a piece of rebar in there, which leaves you about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch on either side of the bar to be able to get that in place. What is the grout that's used with our system? It's our Sleeve Lock D490 grout. It's a 50-pound bag with a yield of over 11,000 PSI, and it's designed to be pumped straight into the tubes, into the sleeve. Will develop a high compressive strength, meets ASTM 110 specification for non-string grout and ASTM C827. So if you need those, I'm sorry, I said 110, it's 1107. If you need those certifications or you need to see more about that as you're trying to put it into a design, just reach out to us and we can get you all of the documentation that you need. And you see here, in 1 day it's 7,000 PSI, in 28 days you're up to 12,000 PSI. So it's a rapid setting grout, allows for the project to not be stalled while you're waiting for that to set up or anything going on. Testing and certifications, this is an IATMO approved product with UEL 5017. So again, that certification is for grade 60 rebar. We are currently working on the testing to get it approved for grade 80 rebar as well, because we know that that is a need in the industry. Now, exciting thing coming up, now available is our D420. This is our hybrid grout sleeve. So you'll notice if you've been reading the slides, I haven't necessarily highlighted the non-threaded portion of that. That's because we are developing or have developed a threaded option. This works in conjunction with our taper lock system. So taper lock is our system where we place a threading machine at fabricators around the country, and they're able to put a tapered thread on and then use it to place form savers, in anchors, barred bar connections, whatever's needed for that system. This is our next offering in that line and the grout sleeve line. It combines both of those. And
Matthew?
right now it's available. Yes, ma'am.
Just want to put in a plug. In 2 weeks, we're going to be doing taper lock, so you guys come and join and you can learn more about it. And so back to the now available sleeve lock D420. Thanks.
There you go. So if you want to learn more about taper lock in a couple of weeks, jump in. Again, this is a new offering for us. This is available strictly in number 5 right now because that's the size that was highlighted as we were putting it together as the most commonly used. So we'll look to expand it to other sizes here in the future, but for right now it's number 5 for use with grade 60 rebar. And you'll actually see these are some preliminary pictures of it, but we've actually eliminated the port tubes on it, and it's used on the end of panels when they're vertical. You pour the grout into it, so it eliminates some of the waste of grout that you get in the pumping process, just as a natural side effect. So ACI 318 type 2, all the testing approvals that we have for that as well. So one of our exciting new developments. And now my favorite video for grout sleeve. I don't know, Heidi, if I can hit play on this or not, but we're going to try. But this shows you the adult Lego version that we talked about. Oh, no. Fun.
Go in the middle of the slide. Yeah, go in the middle of the slide. There you go. In the bottom left there.
There we go.
Yeah.
Technology. Got it. So again, this is highlighting, here's putting your forms together, We'll put the form anchor in place, the form seal plug in place, and then the seal plug for, again, for regular rebar, for non-threaded bar. This is just the application of our standard grout sleeve. Set it in place. Slide your rebar in. So everything is set firmly in place. There's no, there's not a lot of movement. There's not a lot of wiggle room. Again, Schedule 40 PVC tubes placed in. Fill that up with concrete. Let your concrete set. Knock your forms off, and you have a giant adult-sized Lego. They're fun to see in the field too.
And Chuck, what is-
Hey, Matt,
Yes, sir.
everybody should take notice that there is no special bar end prep for using the sleeve lock. It's basically just take a standard piece of rebar and slide it in.
That's true.
Once you've got it in place in your structure, you pump the grout in, let that set up, and like we said, one day you've got 7,000 PSI, after 28 days you've got 12,000, so your job site does not get held up. So, a couple of projects that we like to highlight just to show you the versatility of the system. This particular project is the Glass House Tower in Canada. It was constructed specifically to be an energy efficient building. It's 200 loft style apartments in downtown Winnipeg. Everything about this building was designed with high efficiency and to be highly sustainable. All of the interior walls were insulated panels, and all of the exterior windows are high efficiency glass windows to reduce noise. And they had energy recovering ventilators in it. Everything about the building was hyper designed. They chose sleeve block to be the system that did all of the interior walls, and all of those walls were constructed at a local precast plant and then trucked into site and erected upon arrival. So they didn't have to shut down a massive area of the city. They didn't have to do anything heavy for the construction site. They were able to do everything at the precast plant, then truck the panels in and erect them very simply and very quickly with the sleeve lock system. We do use them quite frequently in high-rise construction. This is what we were highlighting, where you can see the bars sticking out of the cast-in-place elements in the bottom, and then the sleeve lock tubes that are cast into the precast wall are lowered into place, and then braced and grouted and ready to go for the next level of construction. The Miami Marlins Stadium, or Florida Marlins Stadium, I guess we have to call them now. Sleeve lock played a huge role in connecting the outfield wall for this stadium. Tilt up is actually the method that they decided to go with, but the height of the wall panels made it too large for them to do a single pick. So they had to erect the first panel and then precast the second panel and lower it into place, and use sleeve lock to hold all of that together, and then incorporate our AccuBrace system to keep everything in place as the grout set up. Here is just kind of an interesting note. When transportation is an issue, basically we've seen across the country a lot of DOTs are getting, we'll call it persnickety, about rebar sticking off of trucks. So they don't like panels riding down with rebar sticking out one way or the other. We have been able to work with a lot of contractors and come up with a pretty inventive solution. So at one end, you have a D101A, which is our female side of our DBDI system. And then you slide the other end of that into a grout sleeve at the bottom of the panel. And so you've created a panel that has absolutely no rebar sticking out of the sides of it. And then what you do when you get in place, you take a male bar, thread it into the D101A, you thread it into the female side, and slide that into the grout sleeve on the panel below it, and you're able to make a fully structural connection using multiple splice methods for that panel. A couple of other highlights just real quick. This is my favorite university name to say. This is at Ooey Pooey, Fort Wayne. We were able to use sleeve lock in their new parking structure for their medical center. Basically, they had a limited amount of time to put the structure together. They had a limited space availability, so we were able to work with core slab structures there in Indiana, do all the panels on site at the core slab structure, do all of the panels on site at core slab, truck them over to the university, and put them up in just a couple of weeks as opposed to a couple of months construction that it normally would have been. And then one of the successes that we've been having out west is in pour strip applications. The structure here that you see is a mixed use apartment building and parking structure. And so the typical process for this type of construction is to have a pour strip left out between the apartment building and the parking structure that would be filled once the whole thing was complete. So basically all of that requires additional temporary shoring, additional formwork, additional planning. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of personnel. So the construction company here was able to use sleeve lock to eliminate the pour strip, eliminate any additional shoring or temporary formwork, and pour the garage floor up to the apartment structure, come back and then grout the sleeve once each floor was completed, which saved them a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money on this project. So it sped up the process of this particular build exponentially. Sleeve lock is used quite a bit in bridge connections. This particular project was for Iowa's DOT. They are a huge leader and proponent of accelerated bridge connections or accelerated bridge construction. And so they were able to partner with HNTB to demonstrate that in the construction and the replacement of the Keg Creek Bridge. Normally this particular closure for the segment that was poured, it was 47 feet wide, 210 feet long. Normally that closure would have taken several months to get everything in place, do all the cast in place stuff that you would normally do, bring in the different elements, everything. They were able to use sleeve lock and get this completed in just a few weeks and have the roadway back up and going for travel. So resources, Heidi is going to go over, but it's product pages and a lot more fun stuff. Heidi?
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Matt. So I love that you use the word persnickety. I say that about Chuck when he gets mad at me, like almost every day. Like, you know, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so your resources, in all seriousness, DaytonSuperior.com, we have product pages for you. You can use our search functionality at the very top right of the page when you get onto DaytonSuperior.com, and you can just search for any kind of products you want there. In this case, we're doing sleeve lock, and you will see the product page comes up with a lot of information, whether it's application guides, guide specifications, technical data sheets that you see on the screen right now. In addition, there's your app guide that I just referenced. We have handbooks, whether it's the rebar splicing or the precast tilt-up. IATMO reports are all listed on DaytonSuperior.com, as well as any DOT approvals on a product page that are associated with that product. And importantly, we have the contacts for you. So if you are in need of a sales representative or someone like Mr. Mayer that's here talking to us today from a splicing technical standpoint, we've got them as well. You have the regional contact map here that you can just get on DaytonSuperior.com. Find that, find your state, and you can see who your contact is. And then, of course, Chuck and I are always here for your training needs. Let us help you with those. If you want additional or customized in-house virtual trainings, let's have a discussion about that. You can email us or scan that QR code that's on your screen on the bottom right, and it will get the process started. Or you can just email us at training@DaytonSuperior.com. That goes straight to Chuck and me, and we will get back to you with discussions, and we can see what we can do for you. In addition, we have other training Tuesdays. Just talked about we're having taper lock coming on 2 weeks. Next week, we do not have a training because it is Thanksgiving week. So I'm going to be home eating some turkey, even on Tuesday. I don't know what Chuck's doing. He's probably going to be working for me. But then the next week, we will have the taper lock. So in a minute, I'll have that out there, and you can sign up for that as well. So I want to open it up for any questions that you guys may have. You can do that through the Zoom chat functionality. Just find that in wherever your link may be. So if you have a question, you can go ahead and type it in or type it straight to me, and I will ask these lovely gentlemen here to answer it for you. And as you guys are doing that, I want to remind you that these are recorded and they're placed out on our YouTube DaytonSuperior.com channels. And DaytonSuperior.com itself. Just search Training Tuesday. You'll find 2 links, one to register, like I just mentioned, and another will have like what is going down for the last 4 that we've done, as well as anything else by product area that you might want. So for example, if you're into forming and you want to see what kind of Training Tuesdays we now have a Forming Training Tuesday page of all the past archive there for you, building some resources. So it's a good thing to look at if you're interested. Oh, okay. I agree, Errol. So California DOT Interstate 10 needs this now, especially after the fire. So yeah, let's look into getting them some help with our sleeve lock. Any other questions or comments, guys? All right, well, if there aren't any more, I want to thank you for joining us. Matt, thank you for joining us as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And yeah, you did great. I want everybody who's on the call, especially Mr. Jerry and Tim, I want you all to have a Superior Tuesday. And until next week or 2 weeks from now, I'll see you then. Thanks, everyone.